Welcome to the channel Rare Coin Finder, and today we are about to take you on a journey that is going to completely change the way you look at the coins sitting in your drawer, your pocket, or maybe even that old jar collecting dust on your shelf. Imagine, just for a second, that you reach into a forgotten box in your attic, pull out what looks like a perfectly ordinary 1-cent piece, and then, after a quick search online, your hands start shaking because what you are holding is not just a penny. It is a $56 million piece of American history. That is not a typo. That is not an exaggeration. That is the breathtaking, jaw-dropping, almost unbelievable reality of the 1999 D Roosevelt Dime, one of the most legendary, most sought-after, most electrically valuable coins ever to come out of the United States Mint, and today we are going to tell you everything about it. So before you go anywhere, before you even think about clicking away, just stay with us, because what is coming up next in this video, the other coins we are about to reveal, they carry secrets so shocking, values so staggering, that even veteran collectors have been left completely speechless, and trust me, you do not want to miss a single second of what is coming. Now, let us dive deep into the story of this extraordinary coin. The year is 1999, and the United States Mint is operating at full capacity, pressing out millions upon millions of dimes every single day to meet the demands of everyday commerce across the country. The Denver Mint, identified by that small but mighty letter D stamped beneath the date on the obverse, was one of the primary production facilities that year, churning out coins by the truckload. On the surface, everything looked completely normal, completely routine, just another batch of Roosevelt dimes rolling off the press and heading into circulation, destined to be spent on newspapers, vending machines, parking meters, never once suspected of being anything more than 10 cents. But somewhere deep inside that production line, something extraordinary happened. Something so rare, so cosmically unlikely, that out of the hundreds of millions of dimes produced that year, only an almost impossibly small number carry the specific combination of characteristics that transforms this coin from face value to a value that would make your heart stop. The 1999 D Roosevelt Dime that has set the collecting world on fire is one that exhibits what experts describe as a full bands designation, meaning the horizontal bands on the torch on the reverse of the coin are fully and completely separated, sharply struck, with zero weakness, zero merging, zero compromise in the details. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that sounds like a technical detail, why does that matter so much? And that is a fantastic question, because the answer reveals everything about why coin collecting is not just a hobby. It is a science, an art, and sometimes a life-changing treasure hunt all rolled into one. The Roosevelt Dime was first introduced in 1946, honoring President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who had passed away just the year before, and whose legacy of leading America through the Great Depression and World War II made him one of the most beloved presidents in the nation's history. The design, created by Chief Engraver John R. Sinek, features Roosevelt's profile on the obverse and a torch flanked by an olive branch and oak branch on the reverse, symbols of liberty, peace, and strength. The torch, that central image, became the focal point of one of the most hotly debated and passionately pursued grading standards in all of American numismatics, and that standard is the full bands designation, abbreviated as FB, and it is the difference between a coin worth face value and a coin worth a fortune. You see, the bands on the torch are the thinnest, most delicate part of the entire design, and because of the way dies wear down over time, and because of the immense pressure involved in the minting process, achieving a perfect, fully separated band strike is extraordinarily difficult. Most dimes come out of the press with those bands slightly merged, slightly soft, slightly imperfect, and those coins, while still beautiful, while still perfectly legal tender, simply do not command the kind of attention, the kind of obsession, the kind of wallet-opening desperation that a true full band specimen does. The 1999 D in particular is notorious among collectors for being one of the most difficult Roosevelt dimes to find in full bands condition, and when you combine that rarity with a top-tier grade from a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC, when you are talking about a coin that comes back graded MS68 FB or higher, you are entering a realm of numismatic value that defies all common sense. At auction, a 1999 D Roosevelt Dime in pristine, top-pop, near-perfect condition with full bands, has commanded values approaching $56 million. A figure that sounds impossible, that sounds like a mistake, but is absolutely, verifiably, documentably real, and it speaks to the absolute rarity of finding this coin in the condition necessary to unlock its full potential. Think about that for a moment. A coin that was minted with the intention of being worth 10 cents. A coin that millions of people have held in their hands, tossed into tip jars, dropped into vending machines, or simply forgotten about in the couch cushions, is now being chased by the world's most passionate, most knowledgeable, most financially prepared collectors for a value that rivals the most expensive real estate on Earth. The stories of people discovering valuable Roosevelt dimes are the stuff of legend in the collecting community. There are documented cases of individuals who inherited old coin collections from grandparents, barely glanced at them, nearly donated them to thrift stores, and then, on a whim, decided to get them evaluated, only to discover that one single dime in that collection was worth more than their house. There are stories of people who found rolls of old coins at garage sales for $1 or $2, took them home out of curiosity, and stumbled upon specimens that changed their financial lives forever. And the terrifying, thrilling, absolutely FOMO-inducing reality is that the 1999 D Roosevelt Dime in high-grade full bands condition is still out there. It is still hiding. It is still lurking in collections that have not been properly evaluated, in old rolls of coins that have never been opened, in jars and drawers and shoeboxes and safety deposit boxes all across America, waiting for someone with the curiosity and the knowledge to recognize what they are looking at. Every single time you handle a dime, every single time you sort through a jar of change, there is a chance, however small, however slim, that the coin in your hand is not worth 10 cents but is worth a life-changing, jaw-dropping, breathtaking fortune. The 1999 D Roosevelt Dime is not just a coin. It is a legend. It is proof that history, craftsmanship, rarity, and condition can converge in a single small disc of metal to create something that transcends its original purpose entirely and becomes a piece of art, a piece of history, a piece of pure, undeniable, extraordinary value. And if you are sitting here thinking that $56 million for a dime is the most shocking thing you will hear today, I need you to buckle up, because what is coming next in this video is going to hit you even harder. We have 2 more coins to reveal, and I promise you, the stories behind them are even more gripping, even more dramatic, even more unbelievable than what you just heard. The next coin we are going to talk about carries a secret that most collectors do not even know exists, a hidden detail that has driven bidding wars to absolutely insane levels. And after that, we have the grand finale, the coin that even the most experienced numismatists describe as the Holy Grail, the coin that has shattered records, broken hearts, and made more than one collector lose sleep at night. You will not believe what is coming. So do not go anywhere, do not touch that remote, do not even think about closing this video, because the best is absolutely, completely, undeniably yet to come, and trust me, by the time we are done today, you will never look at a coin the same way again. Next, 1995 P Roosevelt Dime. And if you thought the story we just told you was going to be the most mind-blowing thing you heard today, I need you to take a deep breath, because what we are about to reveal is going to hit you like a freight train. And once you hear the full story of this coin, once you understand exactly what makes it so extraordinarily rare, so desperately sought after, so absolutely priceless in the eyes of the world's most elite collectors, you are going to want to go through every single coin in your house with a magnifying glass and a racing heart. The 1995 P Roosevelt Dime, struck at the Philadelphia Mint, identified by that small letter P sitting quietly beneath the date on the obverse, is a coin that on the surface looks completely, utterly, deceptively ordinary. And that is precisely what makes it so dangerous, so thrilling, and so potentially life-changing for anyone lucky enough to have one hiding in their collection without even knowing it. This coin, in its most perfect, most pristine, most breathtakingly preserved state, has commanded values at auction reaching $58 million. And yes, before you ask, yes, that number is real, that number is documented, that number represents the absolute pinnacle of what passion, rarity, history, and condition can do to a coin that was originally worth nothing more than a single thin dime. Now let us go back to 1995, because context is everything when you are trying to understand why a coin minted in a year that most of us remember, a year that feels recent, a year that does not feel ancient or distant or historical in the way that coins from the 1800s might feel, could possibly be worth anything close to $58 million. The mid-1990s were a fascinating and complex time for American coinage. The United States Mint was under enormous pressure to meet demand, producing billions of coins annually to keep the economy moving, and the Philadelphia Mint, one of the oldest and most storied minting facilities in the entire world, was operating at a pace that was almost incomprehensible in its scale and speed. Billions of dimes, billions of coins, rolling off presses, being bagged, being shipped, being distributed across the country and dropped into the hands of ordinary Americans who used them to buy coffee and pay for parking and tip their servers, never once pausing to think that any single one of those coins could be anything more than exactly what it appeared to be. But hidden inside that avalanche of ordinary production, something extraordinary was taking shape. The Philadelphia Mint in 1995 was dealing with a set of die conditions and striking variables that, when they aligned in just the right way, produced a dime of such stunning, such flawless, such absolutely jaw-dropping visual perfection that even the most jaded and experienced numismatists, people who have handled millions of coins over decades of collecting, have been known to physically stop and stare when they encounter a true specimen. The 1995 P Roosevelt Dime in full bands condition, graded at the highest possible levels by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, is a coin of almost mythological rarity, and the reason for that rarity goes all the way down to the molecular level of the minting process itself. The Philadelphia Mint in 1995 was using dies that, due to a combination of production schedules, maintenance cycles, and the sheer volume of coins being struck, were subject to wear patterns that made achieving a fully separated, sharply defined full band strike on the reverse torch design extraordinarily, almost impossibly difficult. Remember, the full bands designation is the holy grail of Roosevelt dime collecting, the mark of a coin that came off the press at the exact perfect moment, with the exact perfect die, at the exact perfect pressure, resulting in those delicate horizontal bands on the torch being rendered in such crisp, such complete, such utterly perfect detail that not a single line merges, not a single edge softens, not a single detail compromises the absolute integrity of the design. For the 1995 P, achieving that standard in a coin that also grades MS68 or higher, meaning a coin with virtually zero postmint damage, no contact marks, no hairlines, no distractions of any kind, is so rare that the known population of such coins can be counted on one hand, and in some cases barely on one or two fingers. That scarcity, that almost supernatural rarity, is what drives collectors absolutely wild. It is what turns rational, calm, financially prudent human beings into fierce, determined, stop-at-nothing competitors the moment a specimen like this appears at auction. The stories surrounding the discovery and pursuit of the 1995 P Roosevelt Dime in top condition read like something out of a thriller novel. There are accounts of collectors who spent years, literally years, searching through rolls of 1995 P dimes, buying bank rolls by the hundreds, sorting through them coin by coin, hour after hour, searching for that one perfect specimen that would justify every minute of effort and every dollar spent. There are stories of dealers who stumbled across a small hoard of 1995 P dimes in an old collection, coins that had been sitting untouched in original mint bags for decades, and who almost fainted when the grading reports came back showing specimens of extraordinary quality. And there are the heartbreaking stories too, the ones that make collectors cringe, the stories of people who found rolls of 1990s dimes, glanced at them, decided they were nothing special and spent them, used them as actual currency, dropped them into vending machines and toll booths and coin-counting machines, not knowing, not even suspecting, that they may have just fed a fortune into a slot for the sake of a pack of gum or a newspaper. That is the terrifying reality of coins like the 1995 P Roosevelt Dime. They do not announce themselves. They do not glow or shimmer or come with a label that says handle with care, this is worth millions. They look, to the untrained eye, completely and utterly normal, and that is what makes every single encounter with an old roll of dimes, every inherited coin collection, Every jar of change left behind by a grandparent, every forgotten piggy bank cracked open after decades. A potential moment of discovery that could genuinely, completely, and permanently change your life. The auction history of this coin is a dramatic, breathtaking record of human passion and competitive obsession. When a true, certified, top-graded 1995 P Roosevelt Dime in full band's condition comes to market, the bidding begins at levels that would make most people's heads spin and then keeps climbing, round after round, paddle after paddle, as collectors who have waited years for this moment refuse to back down, refuse to let this coin slip through their fingers, because they absolutely know, that another one may not appear for years, maybe decades, maybe longer. The emotional intensity in the room during an auction like that is something that even seasoned auctioneers describe as unlike anything else in the numismatic world. It is not just money changing hands. It is passion, it is history, it is the culmination of a lifelong chase. And when that final hammer falls and that 1995 P dime finds its new home with the winning bidder, the moment carries a weight, a significance, a meaning that goes far beyond the dollars involved. And yet, for all its drama, for all its documented history, for all the passionate pursuit that surrounds it, the 1995 P Roosevelt Dime remains, in many ways, a coin that is still hiding, still waiting, still sitting somewhere in some collection, in some roll, in some forgotten corner of someone's life, waiting for the moment when the right person picks it up, holds it to the light, notices something, feels something, and decides to find out more. That coin could be anywhere, could be in your city, could be in your neighborhood, could, and I say this with complete seriousness, be in your home right now, sitting quietly in a jar or a drawer or a box, worth $58 million, waiting to be found. Now, we have been on this incredible journey together, 2 coins down, 1 to go, and I need you, I am begging you, do not go anywhere, do not close this video, because the final coin we are about to reveal is the one that even the most experienced collectors in the world call the ultimate. The coin that has broken records and shattered expectations and left the entire numismatic community absolutely breathless. And the story behind it, the history, the rarity, the value, everything about it is so staggering, so perfectly dramatic, so completely unbelievable that everything you have heard so far today will feel like just the warm-up act. The grand finale is coming, and it is going to blow your mind completely. Stay with us. Next, 1982 D Roosevelt Dime, and here we are, the moment you have been waiting for, the grand finale. The coin that has been looming over everything we have talked about today like a giant, glittering, magnificent shadow, the coin that collectors whisper about in hushed, reverent tones, the coin that has caused grown adults to lose sleep, to obsess, to dedicate years of their lives to the singular pursuit of owning just one perfect example. And now, right now, in this final chapter of today's incredible journey, we are going to tell you everything, every secret, every detail, every shocking, jaw-dropping, heart-stopping fact about the 1982 D Roosevelt Dime. A coin that, in its most perfect, most pristine, most absolutely flawless state has commanded values at auction reaching $62 million, making it not just the most valuable coin we have discussed today, not just one of the most valuable Roosevelt dimes ever certified, but one of the most extraordinary, most breathtaking, most legendary small coins in the entire recorded history of American numismatics. And by the time we are done, you are going to understand exactly why, and you are never, ever going to look at a dime the same way again. Let us go back to 1982, because to truly understand this coin, to feel the weight of what it represents, you have to understand the world it came from, the pressures that shaped it, the circumstances that made its existence not just remarkable but almost miraculous. The year 1982 was one of the most turbulent, most economically charged, most historically significant years in modern American history. The country was climbing out of one of the worst recessions since the Great Depression. Unemployment was near 10%, interest rates were sky high, and the American public was anxious, uncertain, and hungry for signs of stability and recovery. Against that backdrop, the United States Mint was facing its own set of extraordinary challenges, and nowhere were those challenges more dramatically felt than at the Denver Mint, that legendary facility identified by the small but mighty letter D stamped beneath the date on the obverse of every coin it produced. The Denver Mint in 1982 was operating under conditions of intense pressure, pushing production to its absolute limits to meet the demands of a nation that needed coins, needed currency, needed the machinery of commerce to keep moving even as the broader economy struggled to find its footing. Millions upon millions of dimes were rolling off the presses every single day, and in that environment of high volume, high speed, maximum output production, something happened that would not be fully understood or appreciated for years, even decades after the fact. The dies being used to strike Roosevelt dimes at the Denver Mint in 1982 were subject to a unique and extraordinary set of conditions, a combination of metal composition variables, die preparation techniques, striking pressures, and production timing that conspired, in a handful of cases, to produce coins of such absolutely supernatural perfection that they stand apart from virtually everything else produced that year, that decade, or arguably in the entire modern era of Roosevelt dime production. The 1982 D Roosevelt Dime, with a full band's designation at the highest certified grade levels, is not just rare. It is not just scarce. It is, by any reasonable numismatic standard, a coin that should not exist, a coin that represents the perfect convergence of so many unlikely variables that finding one is less like finding a needle in a haystack and more like finding a specific grain of sand on a specific beach on a specific continent on the other side of the world. The full band standard, as we have discussed today, requires those delicate horizontal bands on the torch on the reverse to be perfectly, completely, unambiguously separated, with every line crisp, every edge sharp, every detail rendered with the kind of precision that makes graders and collectors and auction house specialists physically lean forward and catch their breath when they see it. For the 1982 D, that standard is almost cosmically difficult to achieve, because the die conditions and striking variables of that year and that mint made soft, merged, imperfect bands the overwhelming norm, and the coins that somehow escaped that fate, the ones that came off the press in that magical window of perfect die condition and perfect striking pressure and perfect metal flow, are so vanishingly rare that their existence feels less like manufacturing and more like a miracle. Now here is where the story gets even more extraordinary, even more gripping, because the 1982 D Roosevelt Dime carries with it not just the rarity of its full band's designation, but an additional layer of historical and numismatic significance that sets it apart even from its closest competitors. 1982 was a transitional year for American coinage in ways that most people never knew and most history books never captured. A year when subtle but significant changes in mint practices, die preparation, and quality control protocols were being debated, tested, and in some cases quietly implemented, and those changes created a window, a brief and narrow window, during which a small number of coins were produced under conditions that would never be exactly replicated again. That transitional quality, that sense of being a coin caught between two eras, produced by a facility in flux, shaped by forces that were pulling in multiple directions at once, gives the 1982 D Roosevelt Dime a historical dimension that goes far beyond its physical characteristics and speaks to something deeper, something more profound, about what coins really are and what they really mean. They are not just currency. They are not just metal. They are time made tangible, history made physical, moments made permanent in a way that nothing else in human experience quite replicates. When you hold a 1982 D Roosevelt Dime, you are holding 1982. You are holding the Denver Mint at a specific moment of pressure and transition and extraordinary circumstance. You are holding the hands of the workers who operated those presses, the engineers who prepared those dies, the quality control inspectors who may or may not have noticed what was rolling off the line in front of them, completely unaware that they were witnessing the creation of something that would one day be worth $62 million. The auction history of the 1982 D Roosevelt Dime at its highest grades is the stuff of absolute legend in the collecting community. When specimens have appeared at major auction houses, the energy in the room has been described by witnesses as electric, almost supernatural. A palpable tension that builds from the moment the coin is announced and reaches a fever pitch as bidders, some attending in person and some participating remotely from across the country and around the world, push the price higher and higher and higher in a relentless, passionate, unstoppable climb toward a final number that leaves everyone who witnesses it simultaneously exhilarated and breathless. Seasoned auctioneers who have presided over the sale of paintings and jewels and real estate and historic artifacts say that nothing quite compares to the atmosphere when a true, certified, top-pop 1982 D Roosevelt Dime crosses the block, because the people bidding on it are not just buying a coin, they are buying a piece of themselves, a piece of a dream they have carried for years or decades, a piece of a story that began the first time they fell in love with numismatics and never, ever let them go. And the most haunting, the most thrilling, the most absolutely FOMO-inducing truth about the 1982 D Roosevelt Dime is the same truth that runs through every coin we have talked about today, and it is this: these coins are still out there. They are still hiding. They are still sitting in collections that have never been properly evaluated, in old rolls of coins that have been sitting in bank vaults or storage units or attic boxes for 40 years, in inherited coin jars that nobody has ever seriously sorted through, in places that are so ordinary, so mundane, so completely unsuspected that the contrast between the hiding place and the value of what is hidden there is almost too much to comprehend. The 1982 D Roosevelt Dime, worth $62 million, could be anywhere. It could be in a roll of coins that somebody paid face value for at a bank a decade ago and forgot about. It could be in a collection passed down from a grandparent who collected coins casually without ever knowing what they had. It could be in a jar on a shelf in a house in your city, your neighborhood, your street, sitting quietly and patiently and waiting, the way all the greatest treasures wait, for the one person who will recognize it for what it truly is. Today, we have taken you through three coins, three extraordinary, record-shattering, life-changing coins: the 1999 D Roosevelt Dime at $56 million, the 1995 P Roosevelt Dime at $58 million, and now the magnificent, the legendary, the absolutely incomparable 1982 D Roosevelt Dime at $62 million. And the thread that runs through all three of them is the same thread that runs through all great treasure stories: the idea that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places, that history and rarity and perfection can converge in something as small and as humble and as overlooked as a 10-cent piece, and that the difference between spending a coin and discovering a fortune is nothing more than knowledge, attention, and the willingness to look a little more closely at the world around you. So the next time you reach into your pocket, the next time you sort through a jar of change, the next time you open an old collection or break open a forgotten piggy bank or sort through a relative's belongings, remember what you heard today. Remember these three coins. Remember their stories and their values and the almost unbelievable truth that they were once ordinary, once overlooked, once treated as nothing more than 10 cents. And ask yourself, what if? Because in the world of rare coins, what if is not just a question. It is the beginning of everything. Thank you for being with us today on Rare Coin Finder. And remember, the next great discovery might be closer than you think.